Hey everyone, in today's video, I am rounding up 10 of my favorite October/Halloween-ish type activities. Now I say Halloween-ish because only some of them actually directly relate to Halloween. Many of them actually just go with common October themes. We're gonna talk about bats and skeletons and spiders and all that fun stuff. Some of these activities I have shared in the past, many I have not. Some of these are going to be free, some others are not, but I'm going to run through all 10 of these in a pretty quick way, just so you can see exactly what they are, and I will always share where to find each one as the video is going, and also remember that to find links to any of them, they will be down in the description below. And funnily enough, October is just one of those months where I actually had a hard time narrowing down just 10 activities to do this month. Some months I find that with like themes that are happening, you can find so many different fun and engaging activities. In other months it's a little more difficult, but October is one of those where I found a ton. So these are just 10 of my favorites, and if you are ready to hear them, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and let's get started. Alright, lesson number 1 is to teach all about bats. Now, pretty much every month I like to incorporate some nonfiction learning around an animal of some kind. I just find that it is highly engaging for our K-2 students. So in October, not only do we learn a lot about pumpkins and the life cycle of a pumpkin, but I also like to teach a little bit about bats and spiders. Now, bats and spiders both have a little creepy effect that students are naturally usually engaged with for some reason. They're like, ooh, creepy crawly, and all that fun stuff. So first I like to focus on bats. So when teaching students about bats, I actually like to teach them a little bit about bats and then compare them with owls. So I like to use these two books right here. These are just the National Geographic, the little readers, and they share tons of quick and easy and fun facts about both bats and owls. So I'd spend a little bit of time reading both of those books aloud, probably bats on one day, owls on the other day, and then we would go ahead and practice comparing and contrasting these two animals. What is alike about these animals? What is different about these animals? And in my October writing unit, I actually have a bunch of differentiated pages for students to go ahead and compare these two animals. Of course, we have a Venn diagram that I would probably use together with the class. I would put this under a dot cam, and we would talk about what is different about bats and owls and what is the same. And then as with all of my monthly writing units, we have differentiated pages here, some where students can go ahead and trace and then complete the sentence stem. So I would have them do both of these pages. Bats and owls are alike because, and bats and owls are different because. Then there's another one here that I would probably use in first grade where it says bats and owls, and then it has a word box down below, and we have the word alike, we have different, we have fly, wings, nocturnal, bird, mammal, just some of those words that they are going to use when describing bats and owls and comparing them. And then for second grade, we have some pages here with just the lines and still a word box in case they need it, and of course a blank page for them to write their own thoughts. So you can see those writing sheets are really applicable to kindergarten, first, and second grade, depending on which one you use and how much, pre-teaching you're doing with your students to have them compare the animals. So to recap, activity number 1 is to teach about bats, teach about owls, and then compare the two. It's great for both reading and writing. Activity number 2 is going to stick with that bat theme, and after teaching students some nonfiction facts about facts, I like to read them a fiction story like this very popular one, Stellaluna. Now, I love reading this story for many different reasons. It's a cute story about a little bat who is separated from its mother. So when I'm reading this story in October, I usually am focusing on retelling the story, specifically thinking about the beginning, the middle, and the ending of a story. And I actually have an interactive read aloud lesson for this book. In this unit right here, this is my interactive read aloud units for the year. And each month I have separated by a reading comprehension skill with some classic read aloud stories that you would read with your students, along with tons of higher order thinking questions to ask them. And Stellaluna is included in this unit, which I would usually read in October. So when reading Stellaluna, here is what the interactive read aloud lesson looks like. They are all set up the same way with some terms to define, a preview of the book, and then I have it separated by page and what types of questions and interactions I would ask for students to do while I'm reading this book aloud. And then for each book, I also have a reading comprehension sheet. So here students would draw the most important part of each section of the story, beginning, middle, and end. And then I also have a writing sheet here where students would summarize the story below. And here they're tasked to make sure that they only mention the important parts of the story. That writing sheet is clearly geared more towards second grade students in terms of actually completing that sheet, but the question itself can be something that with your kindergarten or first grade students you discuss as a whole group. So activity 2 is to practice some reading comprehension with the story Stellaluna. Activity number 3 is a newer favorite of mine, and that is to read this story right here, I Need My Monster by Amanda Knoll. Now, I think there's 2 others in this series by now because it was so popular, but I love to read this fun book with my students and then have them create their own monster. I love this story because it has a little bit of spook, but it's mostly just a lot of fun for students to dream up their own monster that would hide under their bed and protect them. And not only that, but after we create our monster, we use adjectives to describe our ideal monster. So you could do this completely on your own. Like I said, read the story and then have students just draw and create their own monster and maybe use some words to describe their monster. In the writing sheet that I had for the Bats versus Owls, in that writing unit, my October one, I have this lesson in there as well where we read this story, and then students will actually create their own monster by walking through these steps. So I show them that there's different monster bodies, they can have all different shapes. So we do basically a directed drawing, but they get to choose all different things here. They're gonna add different arms and legs, and you can show them examples, some eyes and mouths they can use, horns, whatever they want, and then they can decorate their monster and color it in. I would basically have students do that on a big piece of construction paper, and then I would have them write different adjectives to describe their monster, or you can have them write a sentence or a paragraph to extend that with a little bit of writing. So activity 3, make your own monster. All right, activity number 4 is called Place Value Pumpkins. And this is from a Halloween math freebie that I made quite a few years back. Here is what Place Value Pumpkins looks like. This is essentially just a collecting game where students are focusing on making bundles of 10s and 1s. And here I use straws. So students would take turns rolling some dice. They would find that many straws, and as they continue to roll and collect, every time they make a group of 10, shown here by the straws, they put it into their pumpkin. After students go back and forth a few times, they compare the pumpkins to see who had the most, and when doing so, you want them to like count by 10s and then the extra 1s. I explained this in the freebie, but basically the only thing that makes this a Halloween game is I used those little pumpkins that I think I got from Oriental Trading. I know they have them at the dollar store too, but they just kind of themed up the game, but you can play the same game called Place Value Cups instead of pumpkins in the same exact way. That game right there is actually one of 3 different freebies that can all be themed up with some Halloween items, but they also don't need to be Halloween at all. And that is in this freebie right here. I will have that link down in the description, and that unit right there has the directions on how to play Place Value Pumpkins, and it includes 2 other bonus games that I think your kids will like. All right, activity number 5 is gonna stick with math, and this is our easy skeleton strategy game. Now, I love this game because not only is it fun, but it is very simple. Essentially, you just have a big skeleton board like this one right here, and you need 10 Q-tips. You will place the Q-tips on the skeletons like they are the bones, and then students need to take turns, and they can remove either 1 or 2 bones at a time. They can choose how many, but the goal is to be the last person to remove a Q-tip from the skeleton. The game is as simple as that, but as students start playing, they'll start to try to gather some sort of strategy, and they're practicing a little subtraction, so it's a fun little math game as well. Now, in order to play the game, all you need is a box of cotton swabs and to print off some sort of picture of a big skeleton. I do have a game board and the directions included in this unit right here, my Haunted Halloween unit. This is back from like 2014, but it is filled with a bunch of Halloween specific activities for reading, writing, math, and more. So activity 5 is to play the skeleton strategy game. Now, activity number 6 that I want to share with you is actually included in that same Halloween unit, and it is called the Spooky Halloween Riddle. Now, this activity is a longtime favorite of mine. I actually did this with my students back in 2013. That was the first time I shared it with them, and all you need to do is have students create a directed drawing of themselves, so they'll make a little self-portrait, and then they have a little Halloween mask that they can decorate and cover their eyes with. Here's a picture of what it looks like, and then the riddle part comes in because it says, who is hiding there, you ask? Who is the classmate behind that mask? And students are tasked to think of some things to describe themselves, maybe some things they love to do, some words they could use, adjectives to describe themselves. They could share what they're dressing up for as Halloween this year. And then at the bottom, as the teacher, you go ahead and cover the answer to the riddle, so the student's name, with a piece of construction paper. Now, I would always have my students do this, and we would put it on a bulletin board outside. So as students, teachers, parents are walking by, they can read the riddle, look at the picture, and try to guess which classmate it is, and then they can lift up the flap to see if they're correct. So there you have activity number 6, which is to do a spooky riddle craft. All right, activity number 7 is to make sure you read this book right here. I love the story Creepy Carrots by Aaron Reynolds. There are so many great themes and everything to talk about with this story. I love using this when we talk about illustrations in writing too, because he keeps the whole thing dark and to add to that creepiness effect. Now, I love to read this with the whole series. He also has Creepy Pair of Underwear, which is very funny for your K through 2 students. And he just came out with Creepy Crayon, which I just read to a 2nd grade class last week, and they loved it. In fact, they all found their purple crayons and kept it on their desk all day because they were pretending that it was too creepy to keep in their desk. Now, I shared this last year, but after I read Creepy Carrots with my students, I like to have them do a fun STEM activity, either with a partner or with a small group, and I will give them each an orange cube to represent a carrot, and they have to try to build a structure to contain the carrot so the carrot can't get out. And they can use that with all different materials, whether you have Legos, magnet tiles, just other types of cubes, popsicle sticks, whatever you want. You can kind of give them a bunch of different options and then go ahead and try to build that. There are many books I love to read in October, but this one tops the list. All right, activities number 8 and 9 are both related to spiders, and they're both entirely free, so I'm gonna lump them together. Let me show you what they are. First is a very simple spider word family craft that I created, again, almost 10 years ago with my 1st grade students because it was a simple activity and we were working on word families. So this is what it looks like right here. It is just an easy craftivity. We talk about how spiders have 8 eyes and they also have 8 legs. And then they go ahead and cut out the legs and all the pieces to create their spider. And then I will give them a word family ending. So here we did at, and students have to come up with 8 different words in the at word family, and they write them on the legs. Again, very simple, straight to the point, and is kind of a great decoration if you want to spruce up your classroom a little bit. Now, activity 9 is a much newer freebie. It is one I shared last year, and it's actually a series of freebies that you can use when teaching about spiders. Here's what it looks like. There's a quick outline here that tells you some of the stuff that's included in this freebie, like a KWL chart, a recording sheet to share about spider facts that you've learned, an opinion writing sheet where students can share if they think spiders are creepy or cool. They can go ahead and compare arachnids and insects. And then I have 2 different math games. One is called Spider Bump and one is called Spider Shake, where I share how to play each game in this freebie. I had actually made and compiled all those spider freebies last year because I was subbing in a 1st grade classroom and we had a spider themed day. So that's why we have some writing activities, reading activities, and some math activities as well. And last but not least, Halloween activity number 10 is another freebie for you. This one is very Halloween based because it is a free Halloween mini book. Now, this is what it looks like right here. It has 8 different pages and it's geared towards 1st and 2nd grade. There is first a little passage with a brief history about Halloween and a comprehension check-in. There is a candy word search for students. There are 3 different writing prompts with illustrations, a quick addition practice game, and then there's a page to share some Halloween safety tips before students go out trick-or-treating. With Halloween falling on a Monday this year, that type of little mini book is something I would do with my students throughout the day on Monday before they go out on Halloween night. Alright, so there were 10 different fun October Halloween-ish activities that you can do with your students this upcoming month. Like I said, I had a hard time even narrowing it down, but I wanted to share some of my favorite books I read aloud, as well as some of the different activities I like to do for reading, writing, and math. I also sprinkled a few little crafts in there as well as a STEM activity, so you have enough for the whole month. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, in the description below, I will actually number each activity 1 through 10, and then I will link where you can find each one because they're kind of separated in different places and the freebies aren't all connected in one, so I will link each activity and where you can find it. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.